Adventure Cup Contestants Part 2. Let's meet our blue players. Remember, before you ask any questions in regard to why certain cards are played over others, check out the description for all the rules for our contestants, or watch Adventure Cup Red Contestants Part 1 for all the rules. In the blue corners, we have the cool, the laid-back and protective older brother, Matt Ishida, and his partner, Gabumon. Matt Ishida will be running 5 Digi-Eggs, the only other Digidestined in the Adventure Cup with multiple egg printings for Tsunomon. Will this give him and Tai an advantage? Keep in mind there's no Omnimon, so everyone's on a fairly level playing field. All of his eggs provide DP buffs in some way or another. However, Starter Deck Tsunomon will only trigger if there's a Digimon with no evolution sources on the board. For Gabumon, let's draw and add cards to the hand, while source stripping away important sources that may give opponents an edge. After all, if not drawing, Blue has a lot of capability to source strip. These are what all the different Gabumons do. For Garurumons, Matt plans on using BT1 and BT5 over the promo and starter deck Garurumons, primarily because BT1 helps with making his board go really wide, should he get into BT1 Metal Garurumon. As for choosing between buffs, source stripping, or drawing, buffs was the next choice to keep his Digimon alive when swinging into security. With no Digimon bigger than 12k, and with just 2 Digimon for a plus 2000 DP buff, Metal Garurumon will survive any check, as long as it's not an option card. And of course, we have Coelomon or Sealamon as the blocker for this build. Moving to where Garurumons, more than likely Matt will be able to add some extra cards to his hands over time. Therefore, with 2 or 3 turns, he'll more than likely have 8 cards to get that extra security check. Factor in Sagittarius mode, a double breaker with jamming is nice. And to make sure there are enough level 5s in this build, 1 copy of Were Garurumon from the starter deck for Digimon without evolution sources. For Metal Garurumons, there were only 3 choices, as Crest Garurumon is not a blue Digimon option. And while purple could have also been an option for Matt Ishida, there's just not enough support to make it work. For this, there was BT1 Metal Garurumon, BT5 Metal Garurumon, and Starter Deck Metal Garurumon. BT1 was a snap pick at 4 copies, giving the capability to build wider boards for advancing on security the next turn, or building a defensive wall. As for Metal Garurumon, Matt wasn't comfortable with Starter Deck Metal Garurumon, considering the 4-cost memory could set him back a turn. But with BT5 Metal Garurumon, there are some Digimon that can be punished from its effect. Now to option cards. 2 copies of Kaiser Nail, again to help widen the board. While it may be dependent on having a Digimon on the board, this also helps serve to choke the other contenders to 1 memory if a memory tamer is out. With Cocytus Breath, it is a defensive option card to save his butt in the middle of combat. Last but not least, 2 each of the Matt Ishida Tamer for additional source stripping, and +1 memory if the opponent has a Digimon with no evolution sources. Keep in mind, one of these is a memory tamer, which puts him to 3 at the beginning of his turn. In the other corner, we have good old reliable Joe! Joe's going to run 4 copies of Gomamon, one of several ways to trash evolution sources from his opponent's Digimon sources. However, they have to be level 4 or lower. With Gomamon, there are 2 Gomamon that can regain Joe a memory, either by deletion or when an evolution source is stripped. Joe's got to be careful for Matt Ishida's Metal Garurumon though, because that on deletion effect is inherited, and can send that powerful Digimon to the bottom of the deck. Other Gomamon are the cheap play cost Gomamon, and the Gomamon that gets cheaper for every sourceless Digimon on the field. For Ikakumons, Joe went with the Ikakumon that can't be blocked, and the Ikakumon that strips the top source. The top source strip can be really important at times, considering this can remove extra security checks or DP buffs typically closer to the top. As for blockers, again, Coelomon makes an appearance here. For Zudomon, there is 1 copy of BT1 Zudomon, 4 copies of BT2 Zudomon, and 4 copies of Starter Deck Zudomon. While BT1 is nice, Joe felt the presence of an on-play would give too much of an advantage to an opponent in this format. And while the extra memory is nice, BT2 Zudomon is big and beefy that he could probably swing over several level 5 Digimon. As for Starter Deck Zudomon, more source stripping. For Mega Digimon, Joe went with 3 copies of Vikemon and 4 copies of Plesiomon. Plesiomon is more reliable than Vikemon, even if Vikemon is the official level 6 Digimon for Gomamon with a 2-cost evolution and a big body of 12k. Vikemon may grant additional security checks, but Joe suffers from not having a memory tamer, which is why this card is at 3 instead. For option cards, it's a simple 4 Hammer Sparks for the surprise factor and potential Evo up and swing. As for tamers, Joe plans on running 2 copies of himself for extra memory when source stripping, and working with Sora to grab additional memory and source stripping at the same time. There's some interesting synergy with this deck, but we'll see how reliably how Joe does. Both blue decks in this series feature some elements of source stripping. However, Matt Ishida plans on source stripping and stripping his own sources out to build bigger boards and go on the offensive. While Joe plans on a more control variation to remove the best elements of his opponent's Digimon and go on the offensive to counterattack. That's it for the blue tamers. Do you think Matt or Joe will come out on top for the Adventure Cup? I'll revisit yellow as the last color instead, as this will feature both TK and Kari, the last and youngest of the Digidestined. The next video will highlight green's capabilities and how Mimi and Izzy will fare. This is DIGI-PANDA, logging out.